Modern action cameras are getting so good, it's kind of hard to go wrong with anything on the market today. Video quality in optimal lighting conditions is almost indistinguishable across many of the top cameras, but there are several smaller differences between brands that can add up to affect the overall user experience. In this video, we'll break down some of the key differences between the new DJI Osmo Action 5 Pro and the GoPro HERO 13, so you can sort out which one is best for you, the average cyclist. And spoiler alert, different people have different preferences, so the best camera for one person may be different from the next. Now, I don't want to spend too much time rehashing specs, but a few key metrics would probably be helpful to start the discussion. The cameras are roughly the same size, with the DJI being slightly smaller in overall volume. The weights are also comparable as well, with the Action 5 Pro weighing just slightly less than the HERO 13. The GoPro has the DJI beat in terms of pure resolution, maxing out at 5.3K, but it uses a smaller sensor than the DJI for much better low light performance. However, the DJI maxes out at 4K. So they're both high-performance action cameras in a really small footprint, and they both make capturing action sports really easy. But despite being essentially the same video capture tool offered by two different brands, there are enough discrepancies that, to me, make the user experience pretty different. So right away, we'll jump into the first difference. Now, both cameras have really good digital image stabilization, but it might help to understand how onboard stability works, at least from a high level. So the camera's sensor will capture an image of a fixed size, but when you have stability turned on, what you actually get in the output file is a frame that's a little bit smaller than that. And so when the camera is bouncing around, the onboard stability algorithm will move the cropped frame around within the total frame in an effort to keep the output image stabilized. This is why when you turn image stabilization on, the frame crops in just a bit. Now on the Action 5 Pro, I feel that the jump from basic rock steady stabilization to rock steady plus, which is the maximum stability setting, is a little bit too drastic. In this shot here, I'm using basic rock steady since a road ride doesn't require too much stabilization, and the shot is decently framed. You see the scenery ahead, but you also get enough of the handlebars to establish that this is a POV shot while on a bike and not just a drone flyover shot. In this shot, however, I've got rock steady plus turned on, and while you can still tell that it's a person riding a bike, I think the frame crops in a little bit too far. You kind of lose the horizon, and you also lose a lot of the peripheral action like trees and bushes whizzing by, which really is what gives the viewer a greater sense of immersion in the scene. By contrast, the HERO 13 at max stabilization looks like this. You get a lot more of the scene and the edges, and the stuff whizzing by at the sides of the frame is really what gives this shot its sense of speed and action. I will say, however, that in order to achieve this, the HERO 13 also really warps the edges of the scene to get them to fit. And consequently, it's got this somewhat artificial, like Star Wars look to it. Now, of course, the HERO 13 has a lot more digital lens settings, and this is shot using hyperview, which is the shortest equivalent focal length. You could also switch to superview, or even use a basic wide setting to reduce the warping in the shot, but in doing so, again, you'll also reduce the field of view, producing a less immersive shot. Now, as far as battery life, both cameras are on par. The HERO 13 uses a 1900 mAh lithium-ion battery, while the Action 5 Pro uses a marginally larger 1950 mAh battery. Although, interestingly, the Action 5 Pro claims 4 hours of continuous recording, while the HERO 13 only claims 2.5 hours. So either the Action 5 Pro is substantially more power efficient than the GoPro, or there's some discrepancies in the marketing for the battery life. Now, looking a little bit more carefully, the Action 5 Pro shows a footnote of room temperature controlled environment at 1080p, 24 frames per second with the screens off, while the HERO 13 spec of 2.5 hours doesn't really specify the capture settings. In any case, I will say that both batteries do present a noticeable improvement over their respective previous generation cameras. I personally found that if my ride is 4 hours or less, with either one of these cameras, I'm good with a single battery, shooting primarily at 4K 30, and using it intermittently to capture short clips of 2 minutes or less. And then as far as reliability goes, the GoPro that I received for testing did have the typical occasional glitch. Once in a while, pushing the power button resulted in a very delayed power-up sequence, or in some cases it didn't seem to respond until I hit the power button again. In one instance, I recall I did have to remove and reinsert the GoPro battery to get it to turn on. I wouldn't call it a huge deal, but the Action 5 never seemed to give me any issues with reliability. Now, both cameras were brand new out of the box when I started the testing period and have both gotten about the same amount of use during that time. I also think the interface of the Action 5 is a little bit more refined than the HERO 13. The screens on the Action 5 are slightly bigger, and they use OLED technology as opposed to the standard LCD screens on the Hero 13. The front-facing screen on the Action 5 is also a touchscreen, which the Hero 13 does not have. But to be honest, I've actually rarely used the front touchscreen, and I mostly just use the front screen to frame up my shots. Now, so far these have been differences in features that both cameras share. In other words, both cameras use a battery, both have stabilization, and both have front and rear screens, all with their own respective differences. However, each camera also has a few unique features that the other doesn't. One of my favorite features of the Action 5 is the seamless integration with the DJI Mic 2 microphones. Using one or both of the portable lav mics is as simple as opening the case, taking a mic transmitter out, and you're good to go. You can also use both mics paired to the Action 5 Pro with no additional hardware, which is super nice for me when recording audio for two different people, although this feature might be less important to you if you're not doing any type of interview videos. I will say that the Hero 13 uses an updated Bluetooth protocol, so while the DJI Mic 2 will not pair with the Hero 12, it is technically capable of pairing with the Hero 13, although anecdotal evidence suggests that it's not always a super reliable and seamless connection. Another unique feature of the DJI Action 5 is that it has 48 gigabytes of onboard storage. Now, this is actually really cool, and I haven't seen this on any other modern action camera. I'd say that the 48 gigabytes is definitely enough for a day out riding, and it means that even if you forget your SD card at home, or if your SD card fails, you can still use the camera. Switching between storage is really easy, and while some might consider this feature to be a little bit gimmicky, and just a way to differentiate the Action 5 from the rest, I actually think this is a legitimately cool feature. I've definitely had instances where I've forgotten an SD card, and in those cases having the Action 5 Pro would have saved the day. And of course, not all unique features belong to the Action 5. The Hero 13's new party trick is the series of aftermarket lenses that you can buy for it. So rather than relying solely on digital lenses, the Hero 13 is now branching into detachable hardware lens mods that include a macro lens for close-up footage, a legitimate wide-angle lens so you don't need to rely on hyperview, and in theory you can eliminate that Star Wars warping effect. And then they also have a yet-to-be-released anamorphic lens, which promises undistorted cinematic quality shots. Now, you do have to keep in mind that each one of these lens mods will set you back an additional $100 to $130, so it'll definitely put you into a different price bracket, being that the Hero 13 now starts at $340 US in late 2024. And then the last thing that I'll mention are the mounting solutions for each camera. The Hero 13 is more versatile out of the box, as it features the fold-away GoPro fingers as well as a standard Q20 mount. The Action 5, on the other hand, only has accommodations for the DJI quick-release mounts and nothing else. Which means for a like-for-like mounting solution, the DJI actually ends up being a little bit taller than the Hero 13, which can affect image quality in that the taller DJI now possesses a larger moment of inertia about the mounting point, which in turn means that it's subject to shakier footage from a mechanical standpoint. To understand this, just imagine the Action 5 with an even longer distance from the mounting point to the camera's center of gravity. The Hero 13, on the other hand, can stay extremely close to the body, resulting in a more stable mounting position, again, mechanically speaking. I will say that the quick release mounts are really nice, especially if you use a chest mount when riding and you've taken the time to find that perfect angle to record your footage. This means that you don't have to readjust the camera's angle every time you remove the camera to check settings or review footage. The Hero 13 does have an aftermarket quick release option now, and once you do install the GoPro quick release mount, then your mount to center of gravity measurement is basically on par with the Action 5. So each camera kind of has its own take on mounting solutions. I would say that DJI is all in on the quick release, while the GoPro tends to try and maximize your options. You just have to consider your usage and decide what works best for you. And that's really kind of the point of this entire video. Both cameras are extremely advanced and pack a huge punch in a small package. Both of these modern action cameras produce really high quality video, although since the GoPro still hasn't adopted the larger sensor size, the DJI still wins in the low light department. But both cameras are really user friendly and will last a long time on a single battery. However, each camera does have a few unique features that make the overall product different enough to have to watch a video like this to help make the right choice for you. Neither one is better than the other, but there is perhaps a better choice for you depending on your usage. All right, well, that's going to do it for this one. If you have any questions about my experience with either of these cameras, just drop them down below and I'll do my best to get back to as many as possible. Thanks again for watching, and thanks for subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. We'll see you next time.